Thankfully, some of these have been retconned and some of them have not affected the main continuity, but sadly, they have all happened. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. Today we'll be counting down the top 10 superhero moments that fans hated. Now, I don't tend to like using the word hate myself, except in extreme cases, but for me, there are many here that even I have strongly, at least I will say strongly, disliked. What are your most hated superhero moments? Number 10, Batman and Babs sitting on a rooftop? Or rather, doing more than just sitting on the rooftop, really, which is exactly the qualm fans had about the animated film adaptation of The Killing Joke. While not in the comic, for some reason, an intimate relationship was added into the mix between Batgirl's Barbara Gordon and Batman's Bruce Wayne. Batgirl is the one who makes the moves after Batman decides to remove her from a case. In frustration, she fights him, and then fighting kind of turns into something more. For many reasons, Batman and Babs fans were obviously not fans of this weirdly forced ship. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button? Number 9, death of Gwen Stacy. A moment that to this day is still often debated amongst fans, having left a dark mark on both them and Peter pretty much permanently. A lot of people for this one like to point out that Stan Lee later lamented Gwen's death, having claimed to not really have been focused when kind of signing off on that, kind of doing so offhandedly, not really realizing what he was like checking off before it went through. For many, they believe that Gwen was the one that Peter was meant to end up with, not with MJ, and that she simply suits him better. So the loss of her character was not only a tragedy for Spider-Man, but also all the fans that shipped the two of them together. Rest in peace, Gwen. Of course, I'm very much pro Mary Jane and Peter, so I'm not mourning it too much, but Gwen was a cool character. That's okay, we have alternate reality Gwens, so yay. Number 8, New 52. This is kind of a big one, because New 52 included pretty much everything in the DC universe, but this was a continuity reset that left a lot of people divided, especially when it came to superheroes and how they were changed by this new continuity. Some were completely rebooted, while others had their backstories modified somewhat, but many storylines were disrupted by the change, while some weirdly kind of just continued on. So this was a very confusing time. Mostly, the main complaint was that it was a confusing time and many of the changes divided fans, with some absolutely loving them and others absolutely hating them. Number 7, Sins Past. Sins Past has to be one of the most ick storyline moments in existence. It was a story that made canon an affair that supposedly happened between Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn. Of course, this affair would later be thankfully re-retconned out of existence, but this story still gave us some of the worst moments that exist in relation to the relationship between Gwen and Peter. Gwen apparently slept with Norman and conceived twins. The twins were born in secret in Paris, and their existence was kept a secret from Peter for many years. Norman in fact made the kids believe that they were Spider-Man's children and that Spider-Man was actually to blame for the death of Gwen, which may or may not actually be true. But I think the worst part of all from this story is when Peter finds out this dark truth about Gwen and her children. His reaction involves lamenting the fact that he wasn't Gwen's first. Peter, please. Like all of that, and Peter's like, why this thing? It's like, dude, why is that the part you're upset about though? What about these secret twin babies? That would be the first thing I'd be like, wait, my partner had secret twin babies? I didn't know about this till now. Number 6, Jason and Babs sitting in a tree? Not something any of us expected to get in Three Jokers, and definitely not anything I really wanted, I think. But hey, it's something we got anyways, as I guess a bonus? In general, Three Jokers was a highly debated series when it came to whether or not people actually enjoyed it. For me, I loved it, and I thought, just based on the art alone, it was pretty much well worth the wait, and we waited a long time for this book. The story was emotional, tense, mysterious, and exciting. Also that raccoon, oh my gosh. But there were things that even I was not a fan of in here, and this was one of them. Partway through the story, Jason Todd once more is attacked by the Jokers. And yes, I do mean plural, I mean it is called Three Jokers. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've read it, but if you haven't read it, you should go read it. It's really good. Babs gives him a place to stay and helps to nurse him sort of back to health afterwards. And it's during this time that the two bond. Now, while Babs is clearly coming from a place of, you know, being a friend and kind of like a sister to Jason, caring for him and bonding over their shared trauma revolving around the Joker, Jason gets some other ideas for what could be between them. He actually attempts to basically put the moves on Barbara, but is ultimately rejected by her. At the end of the story, he also, even though he was already rejected, decides to leave her a note, basically declaring his feelings for for her. Fortunately, the note does not end up getting delivered, instead being literally swept away. Probably for the best, to be honest. Number 5. Ultimatum. While many of us love the Ultimate Universe and what it did for comics, there are still quite a few of us who groaned at Ultimatum. In fact, I think pretty much it was a collective comic book groan. Ultimatum is a story that basically incorporates everyone within the Ultimate Universe, affecting almost every series and character in some way. The event happened as a result of Magneto attacking humanity, with various natural disasters taking place around the world, all at once as a result of Magneto flipping the poles. Yeah. The main thing it was criticized for was all the death that happened here, but not so much that it happened per se, but that much of it happened off-panel to many characters who fans knew and loved. So you would just like be reading your comic and they'd be like, oh look, that person's gone now, they died. It's like, what do you mean they died? I didn't see that. You're just saying they just died and it's just like, oh, skipping that part. Number 4. Superman Blue. So many fans were left scratching their head after this change was made to Superman in the 90s. The 90s was an interesting time for comics. We saw a lot of good stuff and a lot of, well, not so good stuff. For many, Superman Blue was part of the latter category. Superman Blue was a reinvention of the character that had energy-based powers. He also came with a completely new look and new version of his classic S symbol, with it resembling, somewhat of like a lightning bolt, because, energy powers. It looked pretty crackly. His cape was gone and so were his underwear. I mean, that is the underwear that he traditionally are used to seeing him wear over his tights. I'm not saying he was going commando in his suit. I don't know about that part. The look, however, only lasted until 1998. Superman Red was introduced as another version of Superman, with it being revealed that the two had basically split in twain. Shortly after though, they rejoined to give us back the traditional version of Clark we'd all come to know and love over the years, and that everyone pretty much missed the entire time he was gone. Supposedly in honor of his 60th anniversary though, not because Superman Blue was terrible. Superman Blue, I think for many fans, was just not a thing they were into. Number 3. Miss Marvel's Big Terrible Send-Off. Oh boy, this was one that left a lot of Carol fans questioning what the heck just happened. In the fateful Avengers issue number 200, Carol, after becoming suddenly, mysteriously, and rapidly pregnant, gives birth. Her child grows quickly as well, and we learn that this child was actually a being known as Marcus Immortus, son of Immortus and alternate timeline Kang, who used Carol's body to basically travel to the world of Earth so that he might escape the dimension he was trapped in. So yeah, he's kind of his own father. It's very confusing. While there are a million red flags here, no one seems to really raise an eyebrow until the end of this story, with her fellow Avengers reassuring Carol that she should be happy about this random and mysteriously sudden child she's about to have. It's only when the child grows up and things start getting catastrophic as a result of his presence that the Avengers seem to think something here is wrong. You think something's wrong? Something's been wrong the whole time, guys. And even then, when Carol, seemingly still influenced by this man who she just gave birth to, decides, against all odds, that maybe she actually loves him and will return to his home dimension with him so he won't feel alone. Everyone is weirdly cool with this and is like, alright Carol, you found true love, girl, you go for it. It's like, wait, what? Giving us maybe one of the most messed up stories Marvel has ever given us. So, I don't even know. Definitely not thanks for that. That's a weird, awful story. Number 2. Dick Grayson's Fate. In Justice Gods Among Us, there was a lot we loved, but also a lot that we hated. Namely, what happened to Dick Grayson. If you're not familiar, let me tell you a story. Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne go to contain some criminals that broke out at Arkham Asylum. But of course, Damian, as Robin now, starts to take it too far because he's Damian, so that's what he does sometimes. At this point, Dick has graduated from being Robin and he is now Nightwing in this continuity. He tells Damian that his behavior is in essence un-Robinly, and Damian decides to rebel against him, throwing in a Scream-a stick at Nightwing. The stick strikes Nightwing's temple, causing him to become dizzy and woozy, and ultimately lose his footing, falling backwards onto a rock, which breaks his neck. That's right, Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, a fan favorite among the DC universe, is defeated by a rock. I don't think I need to say anything else about that. I think that pretty much sums it up. Pretty terrible. Number 1. One More Day. Maybe one of the most disliked Spider-Man stories ever among fans, definitely one of the most triggering for many of us, is One More Day. One More Day is a story arc where Spider-Man's Peter Parker and Mary Jane ended up deciding to relinquish their marriage in a bargain with Mephisto. Why Mephisto wanted their marriage and why they would choose to sacrifice it to save the very, very elderly Aunt May, who, let's be honest, has lived so long and cheated us so many times that I'm beginning to think she herself herself is immortal Aunt May, remained somewhat of a mystery to fans, which was a big part of why this story was so infuriating. Sure, we love Aunt May, but as I said, she has lived a long and full life, and honestly, I don't think she'd want Peter and MJ to give up their marriage for the rest of their days just to save her. We know now that Mephisto likely wanted the marriage of Peter and MJ because he sought to prevent the birth of their child, who might be the key to his own more permanent, I guess, defeat and demise, even though I don't even think you can really defeat Mephisto permanently. Although this has only ever really even been hinted at still. And at the time, we didn't have this information at all. So it all felt very convenient and strange and didn't make a lot of sense. Namely, it seemed like this was more something being done to undo the marriage of Peter and MJ, simply so Peter could relive some of his bachelor days, narratively speaking. It felt like very much like a choice that we made just for continuity's sake, as opposed to like for an actual narrative purpose. Granted, this also served the purpose of reinstating Peter's secret identity, which was probably the one actual useful thing we got out of it, because that was also part of the deal. That's all the time we have for this list. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube. Bye!